interests. If you want to put Jello on your pizza, that is absolutely up to you. If you want to take a little bite, throw it away, that's totally fine. And if you want to get seconds, you can get all the seconds you want. Next slide. That said, kink also should not be something that you feel like you have to conform yourself into. Kink should be what you make of it. I'm going to make some generalizations here, so do not take my word as law. Become ungovernable, be kind, be gay. Next slide. I'm going to cover as well as I can in a short brief amount of time some terminology, some philosophy, some archetypes, types of play, and theory. Next slide. So, some fun words you might like to know in the course of kitty play. Beans. These are for beans. Wiggles. A dog might wag their tail. In excitement, a cat will wiggle in preparation to pounce. Of course, obligatory is law. You see a cat stretch, you must say big stretch. Dogs units have packs. Cats get options. We can be referred in terms of a clutter, a glaring, or a pounce. I like to learn. Don't judge me. It's in theme with me. Appearance maintenance. There is a hot button word that I used to use in regards to this. Just the way you take care of yourself and maintain your appearance. And of course, kitty business. Kitty business. Dating now. Judging. Having opinions. Next slide. My section on philosophy is going to be kind of 3 parts. Why cat? The philosophy of dichotomies and taming. Next slide. So why might you choose cat? The cat has a personality that is very focused on independence. When I was coming into the community, I saw boys and slaves and puppies, and none of those really liked me. And I knew, like, I always associated well with the cat that we had growing up, more than the dog we had. And I was like, I wish cat was not him. And then at some point, I just felt like, you know what's the most cat thing to do? Own yourself. What other people think of you is their problem. Cats also have this really fun blurring of ownership of who owns who. It really allows for some fun dynamic play in like the dominant pet and submissive handler, which has a very similar energy with like little play with like the princess who has the daddy dom wrapped around her finger. There's this like fun way to do like there's this reverse energy flow where the actions you take, maybe you're on the floor eating out a dog bowl or a pet bowl, but the action has very different internals, which has a very different kind of energy based on just how you're internalizing the actions. And you know, the other reason why you might choose cats is because before you came into the kink community, you were a bit of an anime otaku weeb. You like me. Next slide. Dichotomies. I love the idea of dichotomies. I love to say that cats exist and thrive in the liminal spaces. The ability to be 2 things at once that seem like they should contradict, but they aren't. Cats are aloof but friendly. They are needy but independent. They are affectionate but cold. They are capricious and giving their whims, but also you can pretty much count on predicting what they're going to do. This also flows right into like that who owns a cat. A cat can be both the owner and the owned object. And that is just a lot of fun. Next slide. This is a quote that has been super formative for me in my pink journey. This is from The Deep Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, or The Little Prince, as you might know it in English. It was written by a philosopher, so this entire book reads a little bit, even though it's a children's book, it reads a baby's first epistemology. I mean, sports. There's this idea that you must be responsible forever for what you obtain. When you enter into a dynamic, when you have this social contract with a pet, right? That you are going to take their loudness away, and they're going to give that up, but in exchange, you're going to give them something in return, safety and food and shelter. And that's very important to me because it must pay me. Next slide. You must know that to tame something is to create a tie. You become unique to each other. And the cat does want to be wanted, but it doesn't give that up for anyone. They have to be tamed. They will respect your authority and can be taught to respect your authority. But that has to be something that you develop that tie with them for. I get oftentimes when I say I'm a cat, somebody says, "Oh, well, so you're just a brat." Not really. In my experiences, brats tend to rebel against authority as a part of their play. It is part of the fun to push against the rules and the authority, so that they can feel the weight of that authority. They can feel the interplay of the authority. A cat rebellion generally doesn't take into account the rules or the authority. They understand there might be consequences, and we'll deal with the consequences, but consequences are just the price to do what you want to do. At their core, a cat will still respect their owner. They just also understand that their owner isn't God. Next slide. Some fun archetypes. These are cultural symbology, things that I think give you kind of an idea of where to start. You don't have to be any of these. You don't have to be only one of these. I just think that these are very nice ways to kind of contextualize how your personality might fit into the pet play dynamic. So your kitten is going to generally be a younger energy, more play-focused, whereas something like an alley cat, a house cat, or a show cat are going to be a little bit more purpose-oriented. An alley cat is the type who isn't necessarily a stray, but an alley cat is just the kind of person who likes their independence and likes to really revel in that independence, whereas a house cat is going to more revel in the luxury of their home. They're going to be a little bit more self-indulgent in a different kind of way than an alley cat's going to be indulgent in their own limits. Show cats are the kind of cat who wants to be prized by their humans. They want to be shown off. They want to be somebody that human can be proud of and say, "This is a pretty thing that I own." And then, of course, stray is exactly what it is. There's no shame in being a stray. Sometimes you just like your independence that much. There's the concept of in like cats, like cat analogy, tomcats and queens. These are generally terms used to refer to cats that are of a certain age and plus. For activeness in sexuality. Whereas a Molly is, they're really the male version of the word Molly, but a Molly generally refers to a female cat in state. So a tomcat and a queen is going to be somebody whose identity tends to be a little bit more sexually oriented, and a Molly is going to be a little bit more oriented towards the dynamic and the play. With a supervisor, I always think of my sister's cat, who will jump onto the stool and hit him when my sister's making food, and she will watch, judge, and she will have opinions about it. And sovereigns are the ones who are above it all. They like to hang out on the tops of bookcases. They aren't the type who are going to skitter away back in the bedroom when you have company over. They want to be present and they want to be around, but they don't necessarily want to participate. And then you also have bullies. A bully is the type of person who they're a lot less focused on ingratiating themselves to their superiors and are a little bit more focused on how they can have fun enforcing the higher limit of those who are in their area. They're not going to take shit from people who they view as the brother. Next slide. So it's like you kind of have rules and regulations. I was in a relationship for about 3 years with a couple where we had clothing restrictions. Cats don't wear clothes, furniture restrictions. Animals aren't allowed on the furniture unless they're invited by a human. Speech restrictions. Cats can't. That's good. And food restrictions. Now, we didn't crack open your can and have the crispy seeds, but they did make a meal of ice and beans and some other things that was rather bland, but still interesting. And that on the floor in the living room while we're watching TV and things. You can also involve punishments for a cat, that aspect, and the other types, and do spray bottles. You can kind of bridge the gap there with some corporal punishment, smack the kitty on the butt. You can also, because cats can be very attention-oriented, attention on their terms. One of the ways you can punish them is by withholding that attention. However, that is very much something you discuss with your partner, because that kind of withholding can also be a form of abuse, and you need to make sure that you are doing things consensually and enjoying the things we're doing. With training, training is going to be a little bit different than what you have with dogs. You're not going to be training a cat, generally speaking, to be playing fetch. The cat plays fetch just because they want to. It's not because you want them to. Cats exist on their terms, not the humans. And so you might train a cat into doing posing, specific poses that might show off their body in a very specific way. Posing being something that feeds very well into like the show cat archetype. Training can also involve things like choosing how one's appearance is, cutting your cat's hair, or sending them to the barber to shear in a specific way as to the human's preferences. Or you can also do like clothing choices, make that decision about how and what clothing a cat wears, which I really like conceptually, because it really feeds into the whole like putting your cat in ridiculous costumes, and they will murder you. They will plan to murder you for it in Roblox. But a cat is, again, this is that interplay with a cat will endure it because that is the thing they're willing to do to get the thing they want out of that relationship, that dynamic. You can also do toys and games. You can go full on toys like crinkle balls and fish and little
little mice, and actual laser pointers. Or you can go conceptual and analogous. For me, I like video games as my laser pointers. So play with me as a cat often will be, if I'm not in like a very specific kind of headspace, it's going to be video games. Next slide. Gear. I want to very much emphasize this. Gear does not make you real. There is this lingering idea that if you don't have gear, then you're not really a kinkster. There is, of course, by that transitive property, that if there isn't gear for you, then your kink isn't legitimate, which is an idea that I had to fight against when I was coming into this thing, because it was really hard for me to find gear. So the reason why I want to include this section is partially to say, not only am I here saying this is a real thing, but there are also other people, multiple companies, who also say that you are real and we want to produce things for you. Next slide. For example, my favorite thing, the Mr. Bear kitty hood. The closest analog we have at present, as far as I'm aware, to the Mr. S hood. Next slide. D&Z Creations in Michigan. They make leather hoods of lots of different animals. One of the things that I really love about this particular artisan is that his philosophy is, who are you and how can we bring that out into the leather? It's a little hard to see in this picture, but at the beginning of the slides shown at the end, you'll see the Feline University logo and the mascot. And I showed him a picture of this, and he was so excited to make that into a hood. And his enthusiasm is partially what won me over, because at that time I felt very much like nobody was taking me seriously. And it was a really, really just important feeling for me. Next slide. The For Fun Pet series. I love these. It's a little boring, but it really makes me feel like in the skin. For Fun does both pre-made ideas and custom. The word I'm looking for is like blueprint, but for clothing. Patterns. Thank you. I like. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm prettier than smart. They also do custom work. Very much like this. Of course, if you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars, next slide, you can always just visit your local anime convention or furry convention and just pick up some headbands and cattails. They'll have them for pretty decent prices. This is me, circa 2000, in my otaku weeaboo phase as generic cat play, before I even knew about pet play. So, still water is running deep and all that. Next slide. If you'd like to find some more information on anything that I've been talking about, one of the books that I really found super in my mind, Cat Call, Reclaiming the Feral Feminine by Kristen J. Salidi. It is a book that talks about the intersection of how our culture and cultures across the world attribute different qualities and symbology to felines, and how that intersects with the symbology and qualities that we attribute to feminine people. There's also a section in this book where she calls out specifically puppy play and contrasts it with kitty play, which I just was amazing. And of course, Little Prince, because it's so good. Next slide. Thank you. If you have any questions that you forget to include today, or are a little bit too shy to ask, you can always get at me at my socials. I may have an After Dark Twitter, and then also my Telegram, both at capro.ix. And that is my presentation.
Can everybody hear me all right? Can everybody hear me all right? There we go. Cool. Come on, computer. Well, I'm Colossus. I'm loud and fun. I've been doing this for 8 or 9 years, this being just being a dog man. I don't have anything quite so presentation-y like that, so I'm just going to talk. So when I started, it was really focused on like the ideal gay man, very cis male focused, where like you had to be muscly or you had to be tiny. If it's not clear, I'm not that. And I saw a lot of people like me going out there, but like it wasn't people like me. It wasn't a whole bunch of bears all the time. A lot of time it focused on that ideal man type of thing. And so as I was involved in clubs and involved in organizations, I saw more and more people like me, and then for a couple of years I entered as a handler. Did I turn it off?
No, it's not.
Is this better?
Maybe.
I can't tell how this sounds, so y'all have to tell me. Anyways, it was very ingrained with leather. I started out as a handler, helping put stuff together, and just really from that side of the table. And I just kept seeing more and more mold breakers, and I was like, I want to do this. I'm just going to go and wrestle because that's fun. And my perspective is that, like, toys like this, okay, cool, it exists, but like the interaction between pets, like, oh, let's go, let's wrestle. I see other puppies, other pigs, other like animals as playthings, consensually. So you have to do the whole like, hey, do you want to play? But you don't necessarily do it in human language. You do it with I'm gonna stamp the ground. And then if somebody backs away, you're like, okay, cool, we're not doing that. But if somebody engages, you just go for it. I've gotten to travel to various events. There's this one in Colorado called Puppies in the Mountains that is such a fun time. It's basically a retreat in the woods where you get to wear your gear, you get to do what you want. It's just kind of wonderful in October in in Colorado. But yeah, so like, got to meet a whole bunch of people there, developed myself as a puppy. I'm just a dollar man. A lot of times you'll just hear me being like, arf! Or like, I do pup speak, so,
Can also confirm.
very tonal language. Love me some pup speak. Do we want to get into that? Let's get into that. So when I first started, there was a lot of bad things that would happen to people within the community in terms of just like people would get blackmailed for being a puppy. And that's gone down a bit, but it's also been where people have realized if you're going to like share my adult activities with people, like you really don't have all that much power. Like most workplaces won't really care. Like you're an adult, you're doing adult things on your adult time. So that's pretty cool that that's like kind of gone away to a degree. There's been stuff like Puppygate where you say it and certain people will just be like, oh, really? Which it's, a small group of people that were misbehaved at an event. And nowadays, a lot of people, you'll say that and people are like, what are you talking about? And it's kind of a testament to how far we've come. And one of the other things along with that is, again, when I started, it was very ingrained with leather. And it has history there. And so it's something where nowadays you'll go to pet play stuff, see puppies, and pants will stay on. Back in my day, I hate that. But like when I started, like pants would come off here, there, everywhere. It was kind of an expectation, and it's definitely an interesting thing to see where now, and I'm speaking much more about my own experience than necessarily this is how you do this, like this is how you do this, because there is no one true way, as people love to say. Hi, my ADHD brain has got me all over the place right now. This is why I have notes. And we're not squirrels, we're barracudas. Because, ooh, shiny. Yeah, so it's definitely been interesting to watch the community grow. I'm much more about myself than, oh, there's an alpha, there's a beta. I don't give a shit. That shit was made up. Like, even the person, and that's observed in domesticated wolves, and like, it's not something that really exists. If it works for you, awesome, wonderful, use that. It's not something I prescribe myself to. I tend to work in dynamics more as a, what does it look like for us? And go from there. So I might have one dynamic where I'm more of a dominant and it's more of just a comfortable, like, hey, let's do stuff. Let's relax. Let's see what this looks like. And it doesn't need to be like, you're gonna go do this. It really comes back to who I am in terms of my play style, my dynamic style. My play style is much more, let's do stuff. Let's figure it out. Let's try something. And you'll hear my voice like that a lot when I'm like headspacey. Is let's do stuff. Let's have fun. Let's be dogs. Let's go do dog stuff. Let's go do hot air shit. Not literally. Point. Yeah. So like my thing is really like, don't take yourself too seriously. Like we're just adults. Get it on all fours. Be like, I'm a dog. Bark, bark, bark. Generic dog noise here. And like you can do it on the just like, hey, I'm doing it as a kink. It's not necessarily sexual for me, but there are definitely the after dark things that happen. Yeah, like I'm just a dog man. I don't take things too seriously in general because like at the end of the day, it's about having fun. Like if I get relaxation out of it, awesome. Like I don't want to put energy into something that's not going to serve me. Oh yeah, body size and gear. Like it's hard to find stuff. Like this hat, like it's tight. Like I can't just go into a store and try on like any old hood and it'll fit. Like I usually need to be like, hey, so like what's the largest size that you have? Let's try that out. Okay, is it possible that there's a larger size? And usually the answer is no. So a lot of times I have to go and be like, okay, let's go look at what I can kind of fashion into what works for me, which also works for me because I like highly like custom stuff. I don't like necessarily, oh, everybody has this Model 10. I am going to take this Model 10 hood and put it on, and now I am a dog anonymous. Bark, bark. There's been the whole like pup anonymous thing where everybody has the same kind of hood, and so there's anonymity within the pup community, and that's been a thing for a while. But that's something that I didn't really want for myself. Like I am Colossus, like kind of after the X-Men guy, kind of like that, caring, emotional daddy figure. Theo just asked unstoppable force or immovable object. The answer is both. And you know that.
I do.
One of the first times we met, we moshed, I think. Or was that the second time?
Second one.
Yeah, so that's the second time we moshed, and she could not move me for shit.
For understandable reasoning.
Hey, look, it's a little runt pig. Hey, look, it's a giant colossus. I wonder who's going to win the battle of momentum. It was me! Yeah. So close to... Yeah, like that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm trying to think of anything else, anything that you can touch me on. Okay. Yeah, that's mostly it. I'm definitely willing to chat and have questions and do all that stuff. But I didn't want to like bore people with too much of this is how it is. She said bore, and so of course I snorted because why would I not? Oh, I flag pocket thesaurus.
Pocket thesaurus.
Pocket thesaurus. Yeah, puns. Wordplay.
Why do all my friends make dad jokes?
Because I'm dad.
That's good.
Anyways, yeah, my ADHD brain is all over the place right now, so I think it's time to hear from a pig.
So this thing is lovely. It's hot and I can't.
Yeah, it is hard to talk with that shit on. Bark, bark.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that was thinking that.
Hi, my name is Theo, but for the sake of this event, you may call me Runt. I usually take pronoun. I've been in the community for more years than I'm going to tell you. I started in Florida. I started primarily just as, at that point in my life, another boy. No longer that person. I was around puppies and pets, and at that point it was primarily a lot of puppies in South Florida because I grew up in the male scene, which is a lot of that. I've learned and met some. I've met monkeys. Nothing is more intriguing than seeing a group of puppies and cats and others romp around and wrestle, and then there's just a monkey sitting in the middle of the Rubik's Cube. When I got involved in pet scene, was more of a handler. I didn't care for romping around. It didn't for me. I didn't like it. At some point, I met a friend who was briefly a friend, who let me try their foot on. And when I tried their foot on, I playfully roamed around the house just kind of pretending. And then I saw my reflection in a refrigerator and all down. I like to say that I identify as a pig, but I play within the puppy spaces, primarily because those individuals tend to be the ones that are most comfortable from my headspace to function around. But that doesn't mean that's a set thing. I have romped a large quantity of people, including large cats. Those are scary. And a lot of ponies. They're scarier than cats. They will throw things and kick you. I've been picked, I assure you. That was Florida. When I moved to Chicago, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I was at that point. I was kind of figuring things out. I had a different name at that point that was not Runt. And that name was changed for a very specific reason. We'll see if you can guess it. My name, when I came to Chicago as a puppy, was Cloud. That name was changed very quickly because I assure you, when you're on dating apps, that name doesn't get you the attention it does. Which is funny now. That's a different story. Dated, didn't date, kind of got involved in CPP on a whim with a partner at the time. and kind of got sucked in. Thanks, Mike. And Nix and Natty and every other individual in here who knows me. Kind of got involved, kind of didn't feel like I had spaces that felt comfortable for me. As a trans individual, it's again a very gay, cis-centric space. I have learned over the last 2 years that is not true. There are a lot of us that enjoy the space and those things. I haven't launched much in years, mostly because, again, I didn't feel comfortable in those spaces. Over this past year in October, we hosted a mosh, and it was the first time I moshed with people that felt comfortable and safe and happy for me. And then that one threw me on the floor, which I learned not as strong as I was. Pet play for me is a kink thing. It's something I enjoy, but the most important part of it falls outside the realm of sexuality and it's escapism. I have fairly severe depression, pretty severe anxiety issues, and when I'm by myself or with a handler one-on-one and I can escape into my head, everything goes quiet and I don't worry anymore. It's a beautiful feeling. Unrelated to that, related to here, I have a couple of hoods. This is my favorite, for I would assume obvious reasons. I am a pig, and it is adorable just like me. I said that out loud. I just complimented myself.
Good job. I'm proud of you. Look at all the.
I have sensory issues. Some do, some don't. While I do feel the need to. I hate squeaky toys with passion. Crunchy noises and squishy noises and just toys that don't make noise but I can play around with are lovely for me. Things that are harder and not as easy to break are important. But it's learning what works for you. There is no one right way to kink. There is no one right way to pet. As much as I enjoy moshing, ultimately, I would prefer to just sit at home and stare at myself in the fridge. I have nothing else.
So, as I said before, our fourth panelist is I'm getting a hand from Nick.
Fill the space. Don't quote me on that. I didn't say that.
Fill the hole.
That
I do feel like calling out that I have strong opinions about the fact that there is a correct way to pet. That's with your eyes.
That's fair. Don't touch me. You're doing all of you.
Yeah, so after the video from G, which is a video of him going through his presentation, we will have a Q&A. The link for the Q&A will be posted after the video. It'll be on the screen behind me along with a QR code. So that if you don't want to ask questions yourself and just have me read them out, if you do want to ask questions, then we're going to have you stand over there, and then we'll have a second microphone for y'all. So the panelists will have a microphone, and then I'll be over there with another microphone. Sound good?
So if you ask the question, Bill.
You will be off camera, but your voice will be filmed. Recorded.
So it'll be the mic stand.
Sure, but oh no, my objectification thing.
I recently had the idea of, recently had the thought of giving a nerd your phone so they can take pictures of you and calling them your selfie stick.
I mean, if you have a sub top, you can still have the same thing.
Oh no, my other penis.
So, do you get a subsidy from a restaurant? Anyway.
Usually subs are the main course, not side.
One thing that I forgot to mention before, thank you to the Leather Archives and Museum for allowing us to use their space. They let us use their space for a lot of our educational stuff, so it's always nice to host classes here that are open to the whole community. For one thing, it's 18 and up.
Hello, critters and friends. This is G. I'm honored to serve on today's panel and would like to thank everybody at the Chicago Pet Patrol for organizing this educational event. I have to say that I feel I have a big shoe to fill because, to be perfectly honest, I consider myself more experienced with pup play than with pony play. Today's presentation is based on my personal experience and what I learned about pony play as a kinkster and historian. Like many other forms of animal role play, the root of modern pony play can be traced to the erotic power dynamics of domination and submission. Pictured here is an ancient stone carving from the 2nd century in China, which depict an ancient Chinese tyrant living in the 17th century BCE, who allegedly used humans as his horses. This picture is widely known in China, by the way, because it's used in the standard middle school textbook. Perhaps that explains why many Chinese guys are into a particular form of pony play. The more direct inspiration for modern-day pony play in the West can be traced to 19th and 20th century Europe. Here we have 3 pictures. On the left and middle are from the oeuvre of Carlo, the pseudonym of a popular French erotica author active in Paris during the late 19th and early 20th century. Little is known about Carlo's true identity, but based on what little we know, his work is mostly fantastic. They're more about stimulating the imagination rather than depiction of actual play. As you can see here on the left, it's probably very impractical to actually walk like that for any sustained period of time. However, let's also take a look on the right. Here is a depiction of 2 pony girls leading a cart. This is made by the famous kinky artist known as John Willie, who is best remembered for his international fetish magazine called Bazaar. Feel free to check out the fully reproduced version of the magazine here at the LAM's reading room after the panel. Unlike Carlo, John Willie also put his fantasy into practice. Here are some photos from the Kinsey Institute's collection of his actual photos. To the right is an ongoing exhibition at the Kinsey Institute. Above is another picture by John Willie, and below is a depiction of a pony racing event in upstate New York. It's fairly easy to see the connection between Willie's inspiration and modern-day pony play. Here we have some additional photos. On the left depicts a mid-century guy naked on all fours, ready to be ridden. On the right is a photo by the well-known kinky photographer Herbert Asherman in his special collection at the Kinsey Institute, depicting a pony girl being led by his rider, by her rider. Here we have some additional photos and also a series of pony play fantasy stories published in the 1990s. Of course, pony play finds its most spectacular form in kinky street fairs and parades. There are many photos available nowadays online, so here are just a few from the site cpony.com, which is a great resource and I highly recommend for anyone to check the website. However, just as this picture says, there are ponies of every age, figure, gender, shape, size, and level of fitness in many types of harness. And indeed, just like other forms of animal role play, the possibility is only limited by your imagination. A human equine can be a pet pony, a workhorse, a beast of burden, or mysterious creature with authority. So, being a pony doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a sub. Let's dive into some different forms of pony play. Here again, we have a picture of Carlo depicting a so-called two-legged pony. And here is a video clip of me serving as a two-legged pony carrying someone in the forest near Seattle. I would like to highlight a few tips about shoulder carrying. First is that when you are doing shoulder carrying, you have to make sure that both the riders and the ponies have their are properly aligned, so that the center of gravity of the rider can be comfortably resting on the shoulder of the pony. Here, for instance, it's easier to see that on the left, the pony is carrying the rider on the shoulders, whereas on the right, the center is a little bit off, so which will cause it more imbalance during the movement and also a less comfortable ride. An additional tip is that while doing shoulder carrying, the rider should try to keep the pony's head bent down, which is not only boosting the control of the rider, but also provides some comfortable stimulation for the rider's crotch. Here we have a four-legged pony on all fours on the ground. So it is also a relatively common form of pony play to have the rider riding on the back of the pony. But again, here is a tip about safety. Here you can see that this pony is not wearing proper knee pads, and the hands is also lacking proper gear to protect his hands from abrasion. If you are playing on grass, on the grassland, this is probably less of an issue than on hard surface. But regardless, if you're doing four-legged pony ride, think about it along with pop mosh. So you would want to protect your knees, your hands, and also when you're carrying someone on the back, you need to make sure that you have the proper strength in your core to maintain the right, maintain a natural bend of your spine. Here is another short video clip of me training a pony. we're doing a little bit of a dressage training to make sure that the pony can walk in prescribed way of movement. Pony training also involves control of the body and movement. So sometimes there is a barrier to certain forms of pony play, unfortunately, because it requires a certain level of physical strength, stamina, and agility. These barriers, however, are not insurmountable because you can always be creative and find ways to get around. One alternative, for instance, is pony cart pulling. It can be a great alternative to shoulder or back carrying because when you're pulling a well-designed and lightly constructed cart, it's much more energy efficient. However, I only had experience as a cart driver and have less things to say about pulling a cart. Again, in big cities like Chicago, space is a major limiting factor for cart pulling. So if anyone knows a kink-friendly farmer or rancher with sufficiently private land, please reach out. I think there should be some kink-friendly farmers out there in the Midwest, but I just don't know them yet. Let's talk a little bit of gear. As you could see, Pony Play offers a plethora of options in terms of gears. You could use different gags, headgear, hood, mask, blindfolds, blinders, leads, harness, knee pads, saddles, hoof boots. There seems to be an endless array of accessories for you to choose. What I want to emphasize is don't go crazy with gear because many of them are expensive. So try it out and really think about what works for you. As starters, I think one easy to get piece of equipment is a beat gag. Here we can see a beat gag which is actually modeled after the ones used for on real horses and ponies, and it's made of metal. It looks cool, but it's less safe. So I've known several stories of people who get excited during their riding or pulling and beat down on these metal bits, and then had to see a dentist right after. So be sure to avoid these metal bits unless you're posing for pictures. Instead, use rubber or silicone ones, which are much more safer to bite. Now let me talk a little bit about how to reach out to the relevant communities if you want to explore the kink more. From what I know, I think FetLife is actually a great place to look. There's a number of websites online dedicated to pony play, such as the one I mentioned, cpony.com. There are also a number of Pony 101 articles online, which offer fairly extensive explanations from everything from pony trainings to pony gear. But if you want to talk with people who are actual practitioners of pony play, FetLife seems to be one way to reach out and find like-minded people. There are a number of discussion groups at FetLife dedicated to pony play. Of course, there are also many pony events across the country, but it seems to be mostly in coastal areas. So we know the ones I know are Camp Crucible, which is on the East Coast in Maryland. There's also a series of events called Queen's Cup It's organized by the LA Pony and Critter Club. The Rocky Mountain Pony Herd is also a well-known organization, and if you search for them on YouTube, Vice Media actually did a very nice interview with many of its members. Here, these pictures are from a UK media's article about ponies on the Delta, which is a pony club active in Louisiana. So, thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your questions or comments. Please feel free to ask my contact from the organizers or reach out directly to me on Mastodon, Twitter, and Recon. Thank you, and have a great rest of the panel.
Of today's panel, and we would like to thank everybody at the Chicago Pet Patrol for organizing this educational event.
Is this microphone working? Cool.
How well it's working, we don't know.
Y'all have that microphone there. So, if you have any questions, I will be down over here with the microphone. Or you can also scan the QR code or go to the link there and ask questions that way as well.
Oh, thanks, Nix.
Let there be light.
Do you want me to turn it back down?
Maybe a tad.
I can do one or the other.
This is fine.
Okay. I don't know the system too well, sorry.
You're fine.
This is fine.
Right.
Hello.
You're good.
Hello, my name is Ronan. This is a question for all our panelists. What is all your favorite things about your respective interests in pet play, and what makes you most feel like a cat? Okay. Yeah, fine.
So, I'm just a dog, man. But really, just like getting to just go and be goofy and to just not worry about stuff and to just have fun with friends is really my big thing about it. Like, it wouldn't need to be butt play. Like, it could be anything else, but it gives a vehicle and a framework to work within.
As a point of note, if possible and willing, when you introduce yourself to ask a question, please can offer your pronouns. If not, that's fine. Just a question. One of my biggest personal pains is control. One of the biggest things for me is both controlling as a dominant and not having to as a submissive. And as someone who delves into pet play and the headspace specifically, knowing that someone else is there to make sure that I don't worry about being in control is pretty much the most important factor for me. Also conserve interest, and I'm sorry for going through the thing. I tend to get into this one.
So I feel like one of the things that most makes me feel like into with like when I know I'm in that space is when I can just like be very much in my, like ironically enough, in my own head in a way which like I don't have to be worried about whatever else is going on, whatever the human or the other people like when I think about cats, I think about the way that they never look at a person, almost never acknowledging them. Partially because cats have different rules about eye contact than most humans. But like for me, when I can just like not pay attention but still know that somebody's paying attention, that makes me feel very good because I very much appreciate maximum attention with minimum effort. Who knew I might be a cat? Yeah, that's just like, I don't, I'm very head empty sometimes, so I answer the question.
So next we're going to go to one of our virtually submitted questions. For Colossus, what would you recommend for training or starting quote unquote traditional pup training?
So I'm not super big in training, but I do, like, in general, praise is good. Other languages can be helpful. It really depends on what you're looking for, because, like, a question as general as, what do you recommend for training? Well, what are you seeking to accomplish? Really understanding what your goals are. Are you bringing out the clicker? Of course not. Really understanding what your goals are. Theo is going to give a little bit more information on how to do a little bit more training.
So I have experience with training to a certain degree and being trained more. As weird as it may sound to some, literally just treat me like a dog. Like, the same way you would treat a dog is the same way you can treat a human pet. I assure you this thing works better than you think.
I can confirm that thing works because I got treats things to it at MIR.
I don't know what that is.
That's it.
Hello. So I'm Bruno, pronouns are he, him. Is there anything that you guys are looking for in handlers, like things that help you get into the headspace, things that you hate to see that kind of take you out of the headspace? Anything in that area?
Hi, thanks for the question. So the thing that I see, and this really depends on the space that you're working within, if you're in a public area, public mosh, and like pets are playing, don't interrupt them. Let them play. Let them come to you. If you see somebody is sweating their ass off, I am very good at self-hydrating. Like, I'm relatively good about it in moshes, okay? I tend to take care of myself, but a lot of times it's we need somebody who will look after us, who will take care of us, make sure that our base needs are met. And it's really just you just, like she said, treat like a real dog. Oh, you need some water. Let's get you some water. Oh, you did something really cool. Like, here's a treat. Like, it's not. I don't want to get my words. I don't want to dig myself into a hole and say it's not difficult. But it's fundamentals. She said communication, which communication is huge. Fundamentals.
For me, I'm very tactile. One of the things that can really get me just zoning out almost is just a little bit of light touch in a way that makes me feel like you are touching as an animal and an object and not a human. You have nails and just gently down my brain shuts off. Also, I don't know what I don't know if treats are good like motivator. I've never been gotten treats or pets or attention.
I feel like cats lie.
But yeah, as Colossus said, lean into the archetypes and the ways that you would normally handle a cat, and it's probably going to be pretty in line. And of course, as Theo said, communicate. Because sometimes the way that you would interact with an animal isn't the way that another person would. I remember I got into a bit of a disagreement with somebody once because I spoke harshly to their dog in a way that my brother talked to his dog. And that person was very much like, you were mean to my dog. And I'm like, I was just being like short and sometimes you just need to communicate what the correct communication style is.
And going back to communication, when I'm doing dog stuff, I'm just a dog man. Like, yeah, I can speak some English sometimes, but a lot of times you just gotta go like, arf! Like, no, or like, oh. So like, you have to learn what they're saying, and communication's two-way street. Just because they might not have English at the time, depending on what your dynamic is, what their headspace is, how it all works. Like, you got to figure it out together. Like, it's not just going to be, this is the manual, this is how you do it. Like, it's a language, like any other.
Alternatively, if you're like me and your phone's going nonverbal, especially when you're a pet, you get the names yes and no tattooed on your wrists because it makes it easier.
That's why you got those tattooed on your wrist?
Did you not know that?
No, you just sent me the tattoo one day.
What did you think it was for?
No, yeah, I genuinely got yes and no tattooed on my wrist because I go nonverbal and can't communicate. It also helps with pet life. Most importantly with communication is communicate before you're in your scene. Yes, communication during is important, but especially if you're playing with someone in pickup play or that you don't know well enough, if you're not communicating before you're on the mats or before you're doing whatever you're doing, you're asking for if that happens. Communication is an ongoing thing.
Hi. My question is, if you are at a non-pet place sexually charged social event, do you find it necessary for most likely your trainer or owner to communicate boundaries or expectations, or would you recommend just sticking with pet place specific events and just staying away from the general events?
Obviously, that's going to vary person to person, event to event, but for me, if it's a general event and it's not like a dungeon or a play-space situation, kind of just enjoy yourself, but respect people's spaces. Like, same thing with littles, age play, same thing with pets. Just because you identify as a dog or a little or whatever other realm you identify within does not mean that someone else is going to understand that. So keep it to your own bubble unless it's clear that it's okay. I don't personally think that having mosh space in dungeons is the best idea, but that's situational. I personally, again, have sensory issues, so hearing loud animals walking around and throwing people is a little much for me to let me get into headspace if I'm BDSM playing, but for some people that's helpful. It's situational.
There's also the context of the location or the event you're in, because some places are going to be, the term is high protocol, where you would be expected to, as anybody, approach the D type or the dominant type before the S type or something type. And then there are very much more like relaxed where you can talk to whoever. So at the base, it's how do you want your like dynamic to interact with that space? If it's like high protocol, you may expect that like always being approaching the D type, but then that D type can be like, oh, you whatever, I don't care, or can be very much playing into that and taking that charge. And in more relaxed spaces, you can also same thing, like you can be like, hey, please address my D type, or not care about it. So it's really more focused on what you want and how you want to interact. If you feel more comfortable not having to do the cool stuff. Vibe and mood.
So, one question that was asked that relates that I'm just going to address on my end real fast. The question was, can you be a pet without a handler? And that answer is overwhelmingly yes. Pet-handler relationships are just that, they're a relationship. You can still identify as something without needing that counterpart. So like, you can identify as a submissive without having a sir, owner, master, whatever your preferred B type is.
Handlers are not necessarily dominant. You can have pets that are dominant. You can have handlers that are dominant. You can have any version that you want. It might be hard to be submissive and submissive because, like, then where's the dominance? But maybe that's just the schedule. But in places where there are that kind of thing, like you don't necessarily need that handler. It comes back to the relationship. It comes back to the communication. But yeah, like I don't really have a dominant. I don't handler. Trying to watch out for me in the support network, but you know, that's not necessarily a dynamic. That's like, hey, you're my dominant, you're my submissive. So.
Also of note, you don't need a human in your relationship. You can have a animal dynamic as well. That happens a lot, but not always comes in mind when people are first entering. You most often see it into like a pack dynamic, but you can also, you know, I'm the household bully, and I'm gonna bat you on the nose because you're sniffing around in ways that I don't like. It's really, you know, how do you want to vibe with that other person?
You cannot be anyone else to enjoy yourself. The first thing you learned when you were growing up was to grab yourself and do it yourself. Theatric society. What?
Grab what?
Yourself. Think about it.
Things.
Think about it.
No, I got it. I'm just.
As someone who is single and has been in and out of relationships throughout her life. Oh no, I said a year account. God damn it.
Nobody heard it say.
Right. Who's been around for a while and it's in different styles. They're great, they help. They can find different spaces for you. But if you can't find some aspect of those spaces yourself, this is going to sound shitty, I'm sorry, they're just fucked. Like, people are important, people matter. But if you can't enjoy yourself for yourself, reliance is troublesome.
Healthy relational boundaries.
So, next question we have is, and Solana, I would like you to answer this one because I think you'll have the best answer for this one.
I always have the correct answer.
Every answer can be correct, but I think you're the best one to correct. Listen, I took an engineering exam, and one of the things was ethics. I was picked the most right answer you So, like, do you need to pick a specific type of pet play to engage in, or can you just be a wild critter looking to get tamed?
Be what you want. I've actually met human pets, and I know that the current Iowa pet title holder is a changeling. Fun. So you don't have to be anything specific. You can just be generic animal type B or whatever you want. A human dragon. Whatever you feel when you picture yourself, that's fine. And if what you picture yourself as is just yourself, that's okay. and follow what feels most natural to you. Don't let other people try and dictate who you are or who you should be, unless that is the thing you want to happen in that relationship. Yeah.
As someone who identifies as a pig but plays as a dog, and occasionally will see Max with I think black and identifying as a pig. Here's why.
Yes.
Theo, I would like you to hit on the next question. These are two questions that I'm just going to combine into one. And seeing as you are someone who has, in your own words, been around for a very long time, I think you'll have the most experience. How do you find handlers to play with, and how would you approach a potential handler or person to play with?
I am not the right person to ask this question.
You're welcome.
I got it.
Yeah, a lot of it is genuine trust. A lot for me is gut reaction. If I don't trust you, I don't trust you. Again, neurodivergency, not necessary information. Means I see a lot of things in black and white. If I don't trust you off the bat, it's not like, but that's me. For some people, it's a much more fluid exchange. I can't speak to finding a handler. I've never been the type that searches out or looks to fill a space. You can kind of like just fall it into my lap to a certain extent, and it worked out. I'm not currently dating, so I don't have a direct answer as to how to look for something because I don't know the answer. Sorry.
So I look for not red flags. But in reality, like it's a relational thing. So like, I'm not, but that's a good joke. So just making sure that I know the person, we have some level of trust, we've communicated, we understand each other at the same level, like making sure that our goals are headed in a similar direction. Like that's really what it's about. Like, you're not. Like, if you want to find somebody who just wants to play, and that's what you want to do together, and that's what it is to have a handler. That's what it is to have a handler. But it's something where you need to make sure that the person that you're entrusting stuff to of yourself is going to take care of you. And so when I say I look for not red flags, I look for not red flags. Like, I don't want to see, hey, this person's gonna fuck me over. Like, I'm not going to go into that because that's self-harm to some degree, and let's not do that.
And to answer that question from a different angle as well, start the conversation. What is it? You miss 100% of the shots you never take. It's scary to put yourself out there and possibly be rejected, but being neurodivergent as well on a different spectrum, I found it's almost like a superpower to just be like, fuck it. Nice shoes, you're pretty. You want to make out? Like, being that direct short circuits a lot of people in a way that like is a good thing. Because it kind of bypasses a lot of the like inhibitions and a lot of like the thinking and like the games that you end up having to play to be like, oh well, I'm going to be like subtle about whether or not this person's it. I'm not going to sit here and spend 12 years looking at you and then die alone. I'm a speaking my mind. You're pretty. Do you want to do something about that?
That sounds like a threat.
Let's put a smile on that face.
But yeah, putting yourself out there and being direct and honest. Hi, you seem in the scene a little bit? Are you at all familiar with pet play? Would you be interested in exploring a dynamic with me? Or would you like to get to know each other and then see if maybe we could vibe for a buck dynamic? Putting your interest and your intent right up front saves a lot of time.
Moderately related. Important for me, hopefully important for others. While not asking the question automatically with an answer that you may not want, if you're not willing to accept whatever the answer may be, don't ask the question.
Plus, while you have a microphone.
Oh god, I didn't mean to do it, I'm sorry. I was going to playfully do it, I hit the button. I'm going to go in.
What?
Just answer the question.
I need the question first.
Though pet play is a kink, can pet play be enjoyed non-sexually?
Yes.
But Klaus, can you elaborate on that? Because you have a you are very much a play-oriented, romp around.
I am. So I love moshas. Moshas are great. Nowadays, most of them you keep your pants on, so it's not really all that sexual, even though behind everything we do there is some veil of sexuality. So you're just going and you're turning into whatever animal you want to be, and you just go and play and have a good time, and you're with your friends and you're doing your dog stuff or your animal stuff or whatever stuff you want to do with Dan. But yeah, you just go play. Yeah.
Hi. More information from me. I'm in a weird mood and have an anxiety attack, so bear with me. As the resident asexual on the board, I assure you, pet play does not need to be sexual. If I'm having sex and my hood is on, I'm not in headspace at all. I don't cross those lines for myself. I know some do. I do not.
What resources do you recommend for less traditionally domestic / more feral play?
Me.
For those that couldn't hear behind the hood, Theo very quickly went, me.
When we're talking feral, are we talking primal?
I think so. I'm just reading what's on the question.
Okay, because my puppy is different than my primal. That's a very different territory for me, and that's something where we have to have absolute trust, and maybe a third person watching. Because that's the kind of thing where we get into a headspace that is potentially dangerous, and we're going to hurt each other. We're not going to harm each other, but we're going to do unspeakable things to each other, and it is going to be a good time, and we're going to be sore from it, but yeah.
Pretty much. Pet play and primal do not always mix, but they can. Again, asexual do not hypersexually activate very quickly. But if I go primal, there is ultimately no telling what will happen, and that is why I admittedly do not play with people that cannot overcome it. It's not healthy.
I have another question. And this, I guess this could be pet play or not, but if you're at an event and you're maybe encountered by an individual not being very accepting or understanding of the different lifestyles that may be in the environment, what do you think is the best approach? Do you try to ignore it? Do you remove yourself from the situation? I mean, should you remove yourself from the event? Or have you been in that situation? What do you do?
It depends on who I am and who they are and who's around. So if there's somebody who's running the event and it's very clearly against their policies to do stuff like that, then it's hey, I encountered this. That's just how I go about it.
as much as I would like to say in the kink community, you shouldn't have that at an event. Unfortunately, I have been told flat out, why are you here? You're invading the puppy space. The important thing to really think about is, what is your intent with the conversation you're having? Is it necessary? Is it harmful for you to continue that conversation? And does letting that harm happen to you further anything for you? For me, I have put myself in a lot of those situations as an attempt to carve out spaces for people like me to make sure that I'm visible and people know that this isn't a one animal kind of community. But that's not your responsibility if you don't want it. You don't have to be the representative or whatever your interest is. If you're just there to have a good time and they're not vibing, fuck them. Just tell them to hit bricks.
No.
Don't
fuck
them.
Withhold the fucking.
Tell them to hit bricks. Or, you can be more polite if you feel like it might be more dangerous for you to do that. But you, brain went, whoo. Something that, blew my mind was when somebody said, consent isn't confined to sex. You consent to conversations as well, and you can withdraw your consent to a conversation.
Second, if I say I don't want to talk to you and you keep talking, I assure you I'm walking away.
Thanks, Nix!
I have done this to Nix, I'm pretty sure. Mostly in text, not in person. This is not pet play specific, but is a experience that I have as a trans woman who frequents gay bars. The quantity of times I have heard the phrase, why the fuck is there a woman here, wants me to punch people. Most of the time that doesn't happen because there are quite a few people who will not let me.
Hi.
However, I agree with the Lennox. If it's not a conversation you're welcome to have or comfortable having and you don't want to be the person that needs to be that voice, don't be that voice. Your safety is first and foremost at all times. And if you're uncomfortable, get away from it. If you know someone that you can let know to take care of it, do so. I'm sorry if that's ever happened to you. And please don't tell me who did it.
Big farms.
Indeed.
Bodies disappear.
We everything.
Oh.
For whoever wants to answer this one, are there any kinks that you find difficult to integrate into pet play? Areas where there's still yet more discovery to be made in pet play as well.
BDSM overall, to a certain extent, can be for me. Restricted bondage and predicted bondage are very fun. However, as the resident masochist, I say that because a lot of other masochists in the room.
Hey there.
What up? Pet play and pain do not mix for me because it puts me in a very horrible headspace. Because why are you doing
So, the Mark Ruffalo meme, I'm always angry? Hi, my gender is cat. That's the secret, I'm always in headspace. All of my identities in kink has, the flavor of cat in there. When I'm doing, monarch peasant shit, there is the element of the cat there. When I'm doing, bully nerd stuff, there's the cat in there. Tie me up, cats like string. Ultimately, these things always boil down to what is you and how you do. view it through your lens. Like, even like, I'm a big fan of hypnosis. Like, hypnosis can really play into pet play. Like, it's hard for me to even imagine something that I couldn't view through that lens. But if you've got a challenge for me, let's talk.
I mean, the only challenge that I have found is the one where my life is fully paid for by rich daddies. That's the challenge that I've found. That's like, I have that problem. Hi, I'm Colossus. I'm cute and adorable. Thank you.
So, after the walk on stage for fun.
Don't hit the pig.
Why not?
I don't know. He was walking like he was going to hit an animal. We just talked about that.
So, this question was, what can someone new to pet play do to get involved in Chicago scene, and how do you start being a pet? So, to talk to the how to get involved in the Chicago scene, Chicago Pet Patrol is the main Chicago area pet group. Our website can be shortened to cpp.pet. And we do have a Telegram chat, we have events posted there as well. There are also other spaces around the city that have their own pet nights. I know that Chicago Rose has their own, and I think Galleria Diamond.
I'm like 100% certain LRA, GD2, and Chicago Rose all have a pet night. And I have like a vague feeling that it's all like the same weekend.
Which also just so happens to be normally the same weekend for county.
Yes.
We all decided the third weekend. We didn't communicate that.
At least it's consistent.
Yeah, so for Chicago Pet Patrol, our main platform for communication is a Telegram chat. But we also on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, and we have a calendar on our website as well that if you remember to update with our events on it. We were very bad at remembering.
Yeah, but you don't need to point it
What's
out.
going on?
You do?
Yes! Just because you don't check the calendar doesn't mean it's not updated.
Thank you, Nix. You're amazing for updating the calendar. I'm a very quiet dog.
And now, so the second half, how do you start being a pet?
Fucking breathe.
I thought you said
It's got to. It's an option.
you just go be dog. Go be pet. Go be animal. Just do. Just go.
As somebody who likes head empty, this should mean a lot. Think about it. You can start in your own home, just like in your own home by yourself. Think about what would an animal of your type do on their own in their space. Nap on the bed, knock stuff over. One of the things that I do sometimes, when the floor is clean, is if I drop food on the floor, I will, eat it off the floor. Because that's something that makes me feel animalistic. I don't know if you do both. Why waste food?
So for this question, we're going to start with feline and then work our way down. How do you personally feel about integrating pet play into everyday life, i.e. wearing day collars or hoods in public outside of pet events?
Oh boy, there is a lot of hashtag discourse on this. There are some people who will say things like, if you wear gear in public, you are involving me in your sex life and that violates my consent. That's bullshit. That it makes a lot of assumptions that gets into SA apologia. If a person wears a slinky red dress because it makes them feel sexy. Are they trying to involve you in their sex life? No. If it makes you feel sexy, if it makes you feel good, if it makes you feel happy, connected to your true identity, wear what you want. Cringe is dead. There are probably, contexts and social contexts where it might not be great. Don't wear your puppy hood to a job interview. Pay attention to what are the social norms. But if you're just trying to vibe your life, do you.
How do you personally feel about integrating pet play into everyday life, i.e. wearing day collars or hoods in public outside of pet?
So I'm going to start off by saying I'm not big on gear for myself. I have like my face somewhere around here. I wear this hat. I'm wearing this shirt. Like, you can wear just about anything that you want to wear whenever you want. Like, just do it as long as it's respectful to others, and you're not going to get in trouble with, wearing a mask because you can't wear head coverings wherever you are, because that's the rules. Like, just make sure that you're following whatever you need to follow, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're good.
I have words. No. No. There are, as Florence very directly and clearly and correctly stated, there is a lot of discourse on this topic. There is a time and place for everything. It is in the bylaws of Chicago's pet control and its code of conduct. Within reason, if the venue is not okay with it, we are not okay with it. To a certain extent, we try to make sure the spaces people that are okay with some aspect of what we do, but before we go to the next item, we try to find out, hey, if we walk in with hoods on, is that going to be a problem? As an example, I host a game night every other month. And for the first few months, we didn't allow hoods directly, mostly because it didn't seem necessary. However, we had a few individuals who wanted to. We checked with the staff. They didn't give a shit. So it's fine. For me, a lot of it's just respecting the space. Like, there's a very big difference between me showing up with this on the red line and walking into a Walmart with someone else.
Wouldn't be the strangest thing a Walmart to see.
That's fair.
And you'll get on people at Walmart.
As someone who has walked into a Walmart in a dress with my 6'3", 400-pound roommate, wearing cargo shorts and a shirt in the winter and 6-inch heels. Yeah, you can do whatever you want at Walmart. I'm not going to say it's a good idea.
It's like the Florida shopping.
And then Florida has Publix, which is its own network.
Publix is lovely, but dare talk bad about Publix.
I will talk bad about Publix right now.
That's right.
So, if nobody has any more questions, we have the auditorium for about 15 more minutes. So, but museums open in general. So, y'all want to hang around, like just kind of mingle as well. But first, 2 or 3 panelists that are here, if they have further questions, how can they find y'all?
I'm right here.
And me on social media.
I exist. Oh, I'm in the CPP Telegram chats. You can, but the DMs are pretty much open, so.
You can find me on Facebook at Theo Sophia Corbum. I don't socialize outside of that much, but if you go on the website, I assure you, you can contact me by email through the board.
Most direct way that you're probably going to get a message to me quickly is Telegram at CatBroFeeLinux. If you prefer other methods, I'm not very active on Facebook. You can look up Linux and find me there, but I barely use that. I'm semi-frequent on Twitter, but that's, again, my after dark. I don't have a regular one. I semi-tongue-in-cheek coined the hashtag advocacy on horny on my Twitter. Those are like the best two ways, Telegram and Twitter.
So before we fully wrap up, at least me being up here moderating stuff, the next few Chicago Pet Patrol events that we have coming up, got a plug. On March 12th, we are having a Chinatown chomp up, so hanging out and walking around Chinatown. That'll be at 11 a.m., meeting by the Zodiac statues. March 17th is our monthly Pound Night at Cell Block. You do have to be 21 up to get into the bar, but that will always be the third Friday of the month. It's been that way for years, and it will continue to be that way. The only pause was during COVID when people weren't really going out. March 22nd is Kinkyoki, which is karaoke, also at Cell Block. And then that's it for our March event. Theo wants to make it now.
This is not a March event, but in April. On the 9th, I'm so sorry for scheduling things on Easter. I didn't realize the 9th was Easter until Nick pointed it out in the chat. However, on the 9th, there will be a launch at the Center on Halstead. Please join us at 1 o'clock.
Do we have our next education scheduled?
June, but it's not scheduled date-wise.
Sometime in June. We're going to be having a panel on gender identity.
Yeah.
Theo will be moderating that one, since that's not really my space to moderate. But so, before we wrap up, once again, thank you to Leather Archive and Museum for hosting us, and can we get one more round of applause for our panelists? Yes. I don't have any treats.
Then why do you have a treat pouch?
Because I can't access my pockets in the chest. It's a pocket.
What you got in your pocket there?
Tic Tacs.
Okay, Tic Tacs or treats. Pigs will eat anything.
According to the packaging, they have no calories.